Hey, what's up? John Sonmez here. So I'm going to do a little bit of a different kind of video today. I'm going to tell you 5 ways to burn fat faster. Some of you have been asking about this, and I thought I would answer the question and give you my kind of 5 ways, 5 tips for burning fat faster. And I've written them down to the side here, just because you guys are going to point out, you're going to be like, John, I see you looking over to the side. Yes, I am looking over to the side because I can't remember 5 fucking things in my head at the same time. It's true. No, it's just, what the hell? Why not? Why not write them down? So, the first thing that I have, right, and this is most important. Actually, before we even get into the 5, I want to tell you something about losing fat and fat loss, right? I've done a lot of diets. I've trained a lot of people on diets, and I'll have to tell you this, right? Because there's always this calorie in, calorie out debate and whatnot. So, one is that you do have to be in a calorie deficit, right? You have to be burning more calories than you consume in order to burn fat in general, right? At any given period of time, right? And your body doesn't work on a 24-hour clock necessarily. It works at the instant, right? So some people say, well, you know, if I ate these many calories during this day and I burn this many calories and I'm in a deficit and I'm negative, you were at negative at some point during the day, and you're actually at a surplus at some point during the day, right? Does that make sense, right? And depending on how you space it out, so you could actually have gained some fat, okay, and you could have had a deficit and actually lost some muscle. So it's possible that you could be in a deficit and not be burning fat, okay? I just want to make that clear. But I just want to make sure that you understand that, because nutrient partitioning is what the scientific term for it is called, is really important as well, because it's not just about losing mass. So in order to lose mass, you must be in a calorie deficit in general, okay? There's some small exceptions to this, which have to do with storing glycogen and whatnot, but you know, there's in general, this is the case. Now, again, the reason why I say that is because the calorie in, calorie out definitely is important, but at the same time, nutrient partitioning is more important, because what do you want to lose? You want to lose fat, okay? You don't want to lose muscle. You don't want to just lose mass. You don't want to lose bone density, for instance, or just water, okay? And some of those things you will lose as you're in a deficit anyway, but we want to maximize the amount of fat that you lose and minimize the amount of other things, except for perhaps water. Maybe you don't care if you lose some water. That's good, right? So you're not holding water. Okay, so with that said, that's what these 5 tips are based around, okay? So number 1 is fasting, okay? This is one of those things you can check out. There's a really good book on this called The Obesity Code. I did a review on it by Dr. Jason Fung, but you know, intermittent fasting has become popular. I'm not talking about necessarily intermittent fasting, skipping breakfast is not really going to do you that much. I'm talking about, you know, what I do is actually eat 1 meal a day. You can check out my videos on that. But that's kind of a real fasting, and then really longer fast, 48-hour fast, 72-hour fast, best thing, okay? And as far as nutrient partitioning goes, it's one of the best muscle preserving things, because it's, as you fast for a long period of time, HGH and testosterone actually go up, which are anabolic hormones, which means that you're more likely to keep muscle and to just lose fat. So one of the best ways to start burning fat is to just be fasting, right? Just not eat. I mean, this is pretty basic fucking common sense, but the reason why people don't do this is because they're afraid that they're going to lose muscle, right? And that's really not true, okay? Look at me, okay? I have not lost muscle. I'm about 230 something pounds right now, okay? I've been eating 1 meal a day for basically 3 years, and a lot of time running 50 miles a week while doing that and not losing muscle. I've been actually making strength gains and making gains. You know, you can check out my YouTube videos over the last few years and you can say, well, John, you've definitely been making gains, okay? And I'm not on any gear or anything like that. The answer is that I'm fasting, because fasting is muscle preserving. So quickest way to lose fat, bar none. You just want to lose fat, right? There's a guy out there, I was just watching the snake diet guy. He's a little crazy, but you know, he basically is like, hey, fatty, fast. Like he's basically, his premise is like, fast until you have 6-pack abs, and then you know, and then from there you can start eating again. That's a little crazy, a little extreme, but it's actually pretty damn accurate as well. So you know, what can you say? It's probably really fucking painful. But if you want to do that, like if that's what you want to do, I mean, you got to make sure you have your electrolytes and stuff. I'm not going to, you know, definitely look into this. Don't just say, oh, I'm just not going to eat for 7 days. You know, you got to make sure you do it right, and you got to break the fast right and whatnot. So, but fasting for like a day at a time or 2 days, pretty easy, pretty doable. I do it myself, pretty effective. Okay, actually the most effective thing. Number 2 is adding cardio. Okay, so this is another one. This is more painful, and it's not as beneficial as you think, right? I was doing about 50 miles a week worth of running, basically running 5 miles every day, some days running 10 miles, and doing some kickboxing, and I could still gain weight while eating 1 meal a day. So cardio is just not as effective as what most people think, but adding some cardio in there is going to make a difference. If you run 5 miles every day, right, fasted cardio, you're going to burn more fat for sure. Now, the danger of this is that you're probably going to be more hungry as well. So if it makes you more hungry and you eat more, it can counteract that very, very quickly. And a lot of people overestimate the amount of calories that they burn during exercise and underestimate the amount of calories that they eat. So, you know, it's a sad thing, but if you run 5 miles, that's going to be like half a sandwich at Subway. Honestly. So you know, it's very easy to eat a few Oreo cookies and have negated the effect of running 5 miles. So I'd be careful with that, okay? And I would say with that, here's the other thing I would say with that, is that one thing that you can do, and here's the thing with the cardio, it just needs to be, it doesn't have to be a lot, but it needs to be consistent, right? Because if you're burning an extra 100 or 200 calories a day, that's great. Over time, right, that's going to add up as long as it doesn't cause you to eat more, right? And it's definitely something that you can do. I typically, when I'm coaching people, I don't add cardio until they get down really, really low, and then I add that on top after they're already low from the diet, because then it's like just an extra bonus to get them through that sticking point. So I wouldn't even necessarily add that from the beginning, especially if you're fairly overweight. Diet is going to be 90% of it, you know, and all the rest of the tips are going to revolve around that mostly anyway. That's 90% of it. So, okay, so that's the key thing. The other thing I'd say here, a little hack is, and I used to do this myself, is I used to just get on the treadmill and just walk, right? You don't even have to run. And I'd walk for like 2 hours on incline. You see a lot of bodybuilders do this as well. And I'll do that while I'm like, I had a treadmill desk, so I was typing out emails, I was like reading a book, doing all kinds of stuff, and doing phone calls. And so I'd actually walk like sometimes 2-3 hours a day just on the treadmill, and I lost a ton of weight. This was when I was way overweight, and it worked really, really good. So in that case, it doesn't make you as hungry, right? Because it's not as intensive on or demanding on your system, which, you know, it doesn't trigger that hunger effect as much. So that's just a little hack there. Number 3, cut all the sugars and carbs and really refined processed foods, okay? So does eating ketogenically, or, you know, cutting out carbs, right, eating low carb, does that make you burn fat faster? Not necessarily, but it can control the nutrient partitioning to some degree. A lot of people have trouble, and the thing is, like, what you want to do, the thing that's going to cause you to store fat or not is insulin, right? It's insulin sensitivity. And so if you take in too much sugar, right, or something that is high in the glycemic index, what's going to happen is it's going to cause your body to release a large amount of insulin, and you'll eventually become insulin resistant. This is how diabetes, type 2 diabetes, occurs, and that is going to mean that it's going to take more insulin for your body to get more of that sugar out of your bloodstream and into your cells, into your muscle cells, which means it's going to get stored more into your fat cells. So, you know, there's definitely some science behind this, but in general, right, you know, even though, you know, there's studies that say low carb or low fat, it doesn't matter, it's all calorie deficit. When we talk about partitioning and we talk about preserving muscle mass and losing fat, cutting out the sugars is definitely going to be beneficial. Plus, there's just a lot of calories there, and a lot of times you'll find the foods that are high in sugar are also high in fat, and combined together they're very, very high calorie bombs, and it's a very bad combination to have fat and sugar at the same time, because when that insulin's up, you're in storage mode, right? And what is your body going to do when it then takes in a bunch of calories? It's going to store them. Remember, your body doesn't work on a 24-hour cycle. It works at any instant, right? So at any instant, how much sugar is in your blood, right? How many calories are in the bloodstream trying to be stored or used, right? And if there's a surplus, it's going to get stored, okay? And if your glycogen and your muscles isn't depleted, if that's full and your liver glycogen's full, it's going to get stored as fat in general, okay? So that's just something to think about, is if you want to, one of the most effective ways to lose fat is to just cut out all the sugar and cut out all of the highly processed, right, carbs. Just have carbs be your vegetable sources as carbs, okay? Which is number 4, which is eat a lot of veggies. So number 4 is eat a lot of veggies. Why do I say this? Because they are a lot of bulk, okay? So it'll fill you up, and it's not a lot of actual calories. In fact, it's negligible calories if you're eating broccoli and things like that, if you're eating green vegetables. And I used to do this all the time, right? So when I was trying to really lose weight, when I was losing like 100 pounds way back when, what I would do is I'd buy these like healthy choice, I think they were soups that were like 100 calories or maybe like 150 calories, and I would pour that into a bowl, and then I'd fill the bowl with veggies, right? Just like these frozen veggies, and I'd make this huge bowl of soup, and it was like 200 calories, okay? But it filled me up because it was all these veggies in there, and I still do it today. I eat a ton of veggies with my food, right? I eat a ton of broccoli, eat a bunch of kale, eat salads, eat all this stuff, and those are super, super low calorie, but it fills you up, okay? So that's a super huge tip here, is that you can pretty much just kind of stuff yourself on vegetables, plus it's good for you, right? There's actually a really good, well, somewhat good book. It's called How Not to Die, all right? And he talks about a lot of the veggies that are really beneficial. It's a little bit of a biased book. I'm not going to get into it, but definitely has some good tips there. But my biggest tip is like I always like use filler, right? So I have frozen spinach, and when I used to make eggs, instead of just eating eggs, which are kind of high calorie, right? I would just fill up the bowl with frozen spinach first, microwave that, and then put the eggs in there, and then I have this huge thing of eggs, right? And it's a lot. It's 50% spinach, right? But it tastes good, mixed together, a little bit of cheese. So eating a lot of veggies, definitely. Okay, and then tip number 5 is what we call NEAT, which is non-exercise. What is it? Non-exercise active thermogenesis, or essentially what it means is that it's basically the extra calories that you burn not exercising, but just like from fidgeting and from walking around and doing stuff like that. So if you can increase your NEAT as much as possible, it's going to increase the fat burning. So one of the things that I do is I've got a standing desk, and I stand at the desk. I've had a treadmill desk where I was just walking really slowly. If I go somewhere, I walk. I don't take the car as much as possible, right? I try to be active in an active position, so not just laying down as much as possible, because that's going to keep my metabolism going. It's going to make a small impact, right? Even if it's 100 calories a day worth of NEAT, and it can be more than that. It can be a lot more than that. Especially if you fidget a lot, that's going to make a difference. So just small things like taking the stairs, not taking the elevator, right? All of these things, they kind of add up. It's a smaller thing for sure, but it will add up over time. And there's some significant differences in people's metabolism based on NEAT, which is that non-exercise. What is it? I'll make sure I get the right. Yeah, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Okay, so just a fancy way of saying the other stuff that's unaccounted for, the kind of exercise that you don't intend to do that you end up doing. So that's it. Those are the 5 ways to burn fat. And I'll tell you, again, with these 5 ways, the most important thing is diet, right? It's not eating. Okay, so if you threw out the other 4 of these and you just stuck with number 1 of fasting, that's going to be the most effective thing that you could possibly do. I know it gets a bad rap sometimes. People are like, oh, you're going to go into starvation mode. Come on, look it up on YouTube here. You can see a ton of people debunking the stupid starvation mode shit. That's bullshit. It doesn't happen, right? It's not, your body doesn't go into fucking starvation mode. Your metabolism can slow down if you don't eat, if you fast for a long time. But for the most part, it's going to be effective and the most effective thing. And the thing is, like, and I'll tell you this, guys, okay? If you want to lose the fat and you want to keep the muscle, the biggest thing that you need to do, you can still fast. Like, fasting is great, but just make sure you're still lifting. If you're lifting heavy weights, okay, you're going to keep muscle. That's going to be the most muscle preserving thing that you're going to do. A lot of people, what they do is they start cutting down their workouts and they're not lifting as heavy. They're doing like super high rep shit and all that, and that's how they end up losing that. Or they eat these small meals. They cut their calories, and I'll tell you this is the last thing here, is that they cut their calories down and they eat like 5 or 6 small meals a day, and that puts them in a super catabolic stage. They start actually losing muscle because they're in such a deficit, right, while they're working out in this. But fasting is actually better because it's more muscle preserving because you get that HGH and testosterone increase, right? Now again, bodybuilders have been eating 6 or 7 meals, small meals a day, and in a calorie deficit, and been cutting and getting super shredded for years, right, for decades. But the way that they do it is they're in a very small deficit. Okay, we're talking about ways to burn fat fast. If you want to do it fast, you want to be a big deficit, which means fasting, right? So you got to do the fast. So otherwise, if you eat, if you break that fast by eating these small meals and you're still in a major deficit, you're going to see major muscle loss. I've done it before. I can tell you it's not pretty, right? And so you want to avoid that as much as possible. All right. So hopefully you found that useful. If you did, make sure you click that subscribe button below and click the bell so you don't miss any videos. I'll talk to you next time. Take care.